Alright guys, we are live with the upcoming Ark of Osiris League semi-final match between War and TC, 2359's main alliance. And I'm joined here today by none other than Brian Koo. Brian, thank you for being with me here today, and I'm really looking forward to doing this cast with you.
Cortex, great to be here. This should be a really, really good match, and yeah, always great to cast with you. Always learn a lot casting with Osiris League champion like yourself, and yeah, we got a great one here in the semifinals.
Yes, and what do you say your predictions are? Because it's an interesting game, right? It's sort of the power and strength of the big whale accounts of 2359 versus maybe the mastery and strategy of Viet Ming's team, a name we've heard many times, especially for those of us paying attention to Osiris League and the Ark of Osiris scene.
Yeah, so I definitely lean TCG9 in this match. Cortex, I cast them last week, and I was really impressed with how they play. I think the added wrinkle to what TCG9 is bringing to the table in Osiris League season this year is a lot of player skill, right? We know they have extremely strong accounts with not only the players who have been there for a while, but also the massive migrations that they've had coming in. But they played so good from a micromanagement level last week. I remember early in the match, Cortex, we were watching them take an enemy building, and Plato, who I was casting with, he was like genuinely surprised. He was like, look at these huge whales filling this building. You know, like they're actually just doing the fundamentally sound things of filling a building while it's being attacked. And, you know, I know that sounds crazy to people out there who might be watching this and have 40 million power, and they're like, well, yeah, I always fill buildings in Ark of Osiris. Like, that's not a big deal. But, you know, if you've been playing the game as long as Cortex and I, it's like, you know, a lot of these really big whales, they sort of do what they want and don't always do the optimal team thing that's super boring, like filling up a building. So I think with 2359, it's like, yeah, it's going to be tough to beat them, Cortex. And I think that, you know, I'll be curious what you think about this matchup, because you've played against Viet Minh in the past. He's thrown some pretty crazy tricks at you guys in the past. But boy, I think he has his work cut out for him here with his new team, War from Kingdom 3672.
Yeah, it's a very interesting game because, as you said, Viet Minh always throws something crazy, right? We never know what to expect from Viet Minh. He never really does the same thing over and over again. But especially, I feel like in the Ark of Osiris League setting, where you have your accounts, you have your troops, you have your equipment, you have your commanders, you have all of that. Like you said, it will be very tough to take down TCG9, which have these really strong whale account with maxed out armaments, with maxed out equipment. And like you said, they will reinforce the buildings. It's not like those whales that we've maybe seen in the past that just sit there and they only want to open field fight, they only want to swarm cities. They are playing for the team, so it's going to be a very interesting matchup here.
Yeah, and you know, the betting odds on this are pretty close. I have to say, you know, I was surprised that TCG9 is not more of a favorite here, and I even had some people in my comments saying very confidently that War is going to win this match. So, you know, maybe there's something that you and I both don't know about this, right? Maybe 3672, who pulled a very nice upset last week against 3308, their campmates in KVK. Maybe they're a little sharper than we thought, right? Maybe they are just absolutely on point with all of their skill casting and their teamwork, and they might be an even better test for TCG9 than 16OT was last week. I mean, it's a little hard to imagine because 16OT is so freaking good. But yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
And that's the thing, right? The 16OT game, they were so heavily favored up against TCG9 because, well, 16OT is a known name. They have some of the former 60GT players in there. And people really expected 16OT to deal with TCG9. But now that they've overcome that hurdle, I think people are really starting to realize that this team is only not big whales. They're actually a serious contender for this OL title.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I have to say, after the match that we cast last week, I did have a couple of leaders from TCG9 reach out and thank me for the coverage we did. And one thing that Q is Chaos said, the R5 of 2359, is he said, we have been quiet about what we're doing here. You know, they have a group of teams that they've been practicing with, and they really didn't say much about what they were achieving prior to that match, just to keep some of their opponents in the dark, right? And he also said that they had struggled a little bit in practices leading up to that match, and they really only found it at the last minute in terms of beating the teams in practice that they were supposed to beat. So, yeah, I think it remains to be seen exactly how good TCG9 is going to be here yet. I don't think we quite know yet. They do seem, to me, like a team that could win the whole thing, actually.
Yeah, I think if they do end up winning, I think whoever ends up winning this game will likely end up in the final, I would say, against 93T. We'll see. But I think either way, that final is going to be a banger of a match and really something to look out for. However, we are now in game and we can see players starting to teleport in. Any names you recognize on either side, Brian? Any players you know?
I'm still jumping in here, but you know, from TCG9, honestly, the player who impressed me the most last week was a Canada, the player who cast the skills. He got his Attila David into the enemy desert altar right at the start of the match. That was a really good play. That was like a very confident play from the leader of the team, where like he knew based on where the marches were going that they had a chance to take that building. And so he brought the garrison out at the start of the match, and it was a nice disruptive play at the start of the game, and kind of set the tone of like, oh my gosh, they're going to play like really, really crisp today. So looking to see what A Canada has cooked up against the skillcaster on the other side, Viet Minh.
Yeah, Canada's a very, very good player. Also, the team they got on TCG9, I see a lot of recognizable names from all over the place, really. And that I feel like 2359 as a kingdom in general has really become this merge of cultures and players from all over the place, from 60GT, from 1846, from all over the place. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see them come up against what could be considered one of the masterminds of OL in Viet Minh, right?
Yep, and you know, Cortex, I was looking at the skills that War has put out in recent matches. They've had different skill bars in each matches, but in the match that was closest, they actually had the craziest skill bar of all, where Viet Minh had access to both Inferno and Sun Sailor on his bar. That was what they used in the most serious match they had. So
wow.
That's two crazy skills. That's two hard skills that are hard to execute properly, but can be extremely devastating. Inferno in particular, if you can get that off, it's so devastating mid. But I mean, my gosh, you have to survive 30 seconds against the strongest accounts in the game, all focus firing down the one March who is set on fire.
Yeah, it's a high risk play, high risk, high reward. If you do get it off, it is like winning the fight alone. But like you said, it's very, very tough to keep that March alive, especially up against the accounts. Now the gates are opening. Let's see if we see anything interesting off the bat here. T1 marches are coming out as normal. No skills yet to be cast. Maybe looking for energetic on either side. Or maybe they're running stocking up on both sides, also possible. What's your take on energetic versus stocking up?
Well, I mean, I think stocking up is amazing. Last week we saw 16OT, you know, in the loss, 16OT, they still did some things really amazingly well. One of them was their use of stocking up, where at one point in the match, I feel like they had probably cast double the skills of 2359. Both teams had stocking up, but 16OT just like sort of needed to use it more often. And I mean, to me, Cortex, I think if you're a top Osiris League team, you have to be using stocking up, because you're just getting something like 6 more skill points per match than your opponent. I don't know. I mean, War has not used stocking up. They've only used energetic. We note here that they're not using energetic off the rip here, which is interesting.
Very interesting.
What do you think, though? I mean, like, is it crazy to try to win the Osiris League and not use stocking up?
I don't know if I would say it's crazy. I also did just cast the game with Dan, where both actually Beer's side was using stocking up, but Sober, that ended up winning the game, was only using energetic. So I think it is not the craziest idea to try to win without using stocking up, but it definitely has been a part of the meta, I would say, for the last year or so. Definitely during last Osiris League season, as well as the last Grand Prix. So it's interesting and surprising now to see teams without it, indeed.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's such a powerful skill, and, you know, with these teams who are really serious about winning Osiris League, they do get a lot of practice in. It does seem to me like teams are practicing against each other a lot. And so you can practice stocking up enough in a match, in practice, to execute it quite well during the games. So I do think it's very powerful, but at the same time, you know, if you're a team like 3672 here, who has like the weaker account strength, you may feel like we just can't afford to have 4 or 5 gatherers in the field the whole match. We're gonna put everybody forward fighting and try to win in a different way. And so that it will be very interesting to see how they finish that plan, right? The plan is to have everybody fighting, but how do you translate that into like winning a side game and a mid game when the enemy team has better accounts and they're gathering, 4,000 or 5,000 points?
Yeah, it's gonna be tough for them. I feel like they definitely have to pull something out the hat. Now, for the opening, it looks pretty standard, I would say, at least from the side of TCG9. I do notice a few maybe extra marches on the Desert Altar of War in a defensive position. So maybe they're thinking that TCG9 is going to go heavy on the offense on the Desert Altar at the opening, so they're prepared defensively on that side. Whereas they're also positioning kind of defensively on the other side of the map, probably due to the lack of field numbers compared to what they have on their own Desert Altar. So defensive opening here from the side of War, and a pretty standard opening, I would say, from the side of TCG9.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation about them going so defensive on the Desert Altar at this bottom side, because this was the Desert Altar last week that TCG9 was able to take from 16OT and really disrupt them. So War did their homework and knows we just don't want to get messed up here. But interesting that it does look like, TCG9 is rotating a bit on the bottom side. And then overall, one thing that's also interesting, Cortex, is that, in the past, Viet Minh, he was the guy who created the strategy of the early no mark, where you really push hard on the enemy buildings at the beginning. You use the no mark to get the early capture. And that's totally different than what he's doing here. Like this is a whole different strategy where he's going defensive at the start rather than pushing that early no mark.
Yeah, like we said before the game, we never know what to expect from the team that Viet Minh is on, and that's what makes it very interesting to watch his games, because he is really always thinking outside the box and always trying to come up with something new to take his opponents by surprise, so it's always a joy to watch him.
Absolutely. And, one of the other joys here is going to be watching the open field fighting skills of TCG9. These are extremely good players. And, Cortex, you're someone who has competed at this level before. I'll be very curious if you can, point out or notice what they are doing in the open field that is so freaking effective. Although in this fight here, it's definitely a little bit more fair than we might have expected here. War holding up pretty good here at the enemy's Desert Altar.
Yeah, they're holding up really well at the Desert Altar. However, I did notice that TCG9 has captured the Sky Altar of War on the top side of the map, so that could become an issue for the side of War if they do not capture it back before those first occupation points tick, which I doubt that will happen. But they definitely need to pay attention to that and get that over on their side and start taking points. But overall, and also, War just captured the Sky Altar on the side of TCG9. So the map is kind of split right now with the altars. But also, TCG9 took the Desert Altar away from War. The altars are flipping everywhere. It's hard to keep up. But there's a lot of stuff happening at the start of the game over here.
Yeah, really good action. Both teams taking the enemy's Sky Altars at the start can absolutely disrupt this first mid-fight that's coming up in about 6 minutes. It's the problem with losing your own Sky Altar is that it's so far away from the middle that those marches who make the efforts to take that building back, they sometimes do not get to mid on time, especially if the enemy does a serious job of defending it. In this case, it looks to me, Cortex, like War is going to try and hold the Sky Altar of TCG9 on the bottom, whereas on the top, it looks like the blue team is just, they went there to disrupt it, but they don't have enough field to actually hold on to it. But you can see here at the bottom side that the red team, they're going to try to hold this building. They're going to try to do a hard disrupt on the enemy.
Yeah, if they are able to hold on to this Sky Altar for first occupation points, that's definitely going to be a big swing in the game here. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I guess with the overloaded marches they had at the opening on their own Desert Altar, and then they realized, oh, TCG9 is not pushing that hard on our Desert Altar as we expected. Now we can bring those marches offensive and maybe try to make a play on their Sky Altar and try to get first occupation over there. And no mark cast here by Viet Minh, so they're definitely going for a structure play early on here. No mark immediately cast ahead of this structure capture, and they are going to try to be holding on to this Sky Altar here for first occupation points.
Yep, pretty crazy stuff here from War. They've only they also have two outposts from the enemies. So War has really done a nice job here early on, getting value where it's available. They didn't have to work too hard to get this Sky Altar. As you said, they rotated well over here. And then they also flipped a couple of blue team's outposts to get some extra points there. They've actually locked in one of those outposts. And so it's a nice scoring points advantage here for War if they can hold on to some of these buildings. And look at this, also flipping the Desert Altar of the enemy. So yeah, we got a match on our hands here.
We do. I just noticed the Sky Altar did flip back with about 30 seconds left to TCG9. But like you said, they are holding on to the Desert Altar now of TCG9. So a very, very strong opening building strategy here by the side of War and Viet Minh. It's going to be interesting to see the first arc here, if both teams are going to skip or if there's going to be a big contest here. Now, it does look like both teams are moving in. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to the buildings during this first arc, because it's going to be very important here for TCG9 to take back control of their Desert Altar to make sure that they capture the first occupation points. If that goes over to the side of War, they can really take advantage of those extra points that they're going to have off the bat of the game.
Yep, and it looks like TCG9 has taken back their Sky Altar on the bottom side. They're still struggling to take back the Desert Altar at the top side, which is what we're looking at now. An Attila David Garrison in that building. And, you know, what I've started to see, Cortex, with the mid is that because this map has become so stretched out now with the added altars of Anubis, a lot of teams, they're sending some to mid. Even if they don't send everything, they still send some just in case the enemy team is really, really light there. So in this particular situation, we know that the blue team TCG9, they have the advantage middle because they have not cast any skills yet. Interesting, they have not cast stocking up either, though, right? So wouldn't you normally have already cast stocking up to have those points generated? But the red team War, they're bringing marches here anyway because maybe they can just outnumber the opponent at the mid and negate that skill point advantage that the blue team has.
Yeah, it is interesting to me. Like you said, they should have an advantage here on the side of TCG9 in the mid fight, which is still about 2 minutes away, so they still have time to reach the mid. It is interesting to me how many marches War are bringing to contest here. It's possible that they're just bringing enough to be like, hey, at least you're not gonna get it for free, you have to contest it, and you have to bring marches here. But they're definitely going for a heavy building opener, which is obviously clear by the use of no mark at the start of the game. And again, taking the Sky Altar of TCG9 is War, and they are really hammering the buildings here during the first arc contest.
Yeah, really cool play by War here. They got the very fast second rally off on that Sky Altar, a full rally, hit that building. TCG9 had actually filled up that Sky Altar. It was a max Sky Altar, but the rally got there so fast that they did manage to flip it again. TCG9 has a ton of marches at the Sky Altar as we watch this mid-fight percolating. Red team taking the temple as well. It looks to me like they maybe have a little bit of a numbers advantage mid right now, but I think this is almost like a bluff in poker to me, is them taking this temple. You know, it's like, we're going to try and scare you off and maybe get a first pull on this arc. And boy, TCG9 really cutting it close here of Cortex with how few marches they brought to the mid.
Desert Storm now cast by TCG9 in the mid fights. But yeah, I think you're right in what you're saying, where they're trying to just bluff and be like, hey, we're here. And maybe what they're trying to do is force an overcommit out of the side of TCG9 to make them panic a bit and be like, oh my god, they actually have a lot of people in the mid-fight, we need to bring more, and then maybe in turn take their buildings for their contest in the mid. But the mid-fight is now engaged, and it's looking very close right now, but the skill advantage should be on the side of TCG9. They still have not used stocking up, so they used Desert Storm to the counter of Dust Up from the side of War. The Arc is now spawned. Curious to see who gets the first grab here.
It's definitely a big grab. It looks to me... Yeah, it looks like on the top side, it does look like Blue has a good shot at this first pull. They've got 3 people grabbing it, and these are some pretty full marches. You can see that double C on the map. Might be the one who grabs it. And yeah, TCG9 with the pull. Still a very close fight, though. Still a very close fight.
Very close, indeed. I'm surprised at... I'm not sure what they're doing with the skills on the side of TCG9. They're clearly saving their stocking up, and they're probably gathering up a lot of points here. But are they going to lose this first arc here, Brian? They are.
Oh, Cortex.
Oh, that is tough. That's brutal.
Yeah.
That's
a
brutal.
tough look right there.
Oh,
you know,
man.
we have to say they've not had... they have not used Dust Up. Dust Up is not a skill that TCG9 has put on their bar. They have generally not used a lot of mid skills. Last week, they only had Desert Storm and To the Death for mid because they wanted to have Master Strategy on their bar as well. Now, we have to be aware. Listen, Cortex, they used Master Strategy in a very similar situation last week where they lost the mid fight and then used Master Strategy to warp and ambush and kill the Arc. The escort here is not... huge, but then look at the marches coming to escort this Arc. So War, who has played very well in this match so far, they have done their scouting here. They know that a warp is on the table, and yeah, that's a really big miscalculation by TCG9. We just have to call it like it is. They had the skill advantage mid and the account strength advantage, but they brought so few marches to that fight that they did in fact lose the first mid of this match.
Yeah, I almost want to call it greedy in a sense, where they tried to get away with getting the Arc with as few marches as possible, whilst trying to keep pressure on the buildings and get back their own buildings that War was putting pressure on. But by doing so, they ended up losing the Arc, and they've already been down on occupation points the entire game due to the no mark and building aggressive opening on the left side of the map from the side of War. So now they've really put themselves in a tough spot. Now they do have one thing to their advantage, and that is the skill bar. They have only used 3 points, they have not used stocking up, and they're probably gathering the whole time, as we can see all over the place. Gathering marches? Question mark? Are there? Yeah, there are a few gathering marches that I see around. And they do have that to their advantage, where they have not yet played their hand when it comes to skills. So they really need to do something with these skill points to really build a significant lead, or at least make back the points that they've now lost to War, because they're down 3,000 points, Brian, after only 20 minutes into this game. It's not a good look on this opening from the side of TCG9, and really, really well played from the side of War.
Yeah, and I think the fact that we didn't see anything like Dust Up or War Drums or Total Vision, any sort of mid skills there from TCG9, I think it tells everybody that they do have Master Strategy on this bar again, you know, very, very likely, and unless it's something like Inferno. And so the question here, Cortex, is, okay, they are going to have more skill points in this match. They have more skill points right now. But how do you use something like Master Strategy to give yourself an advantage? I mean, that's the skill you have to use with these extra skill points. And Master Strategy is not the easiest skill to use profitably. And so it'll be very interesting to see how they handle that. And we do have the Altars of Anubis coming up here in 30 seconds. This is a very important part of the map that we have not talked about. These Altars of Anubis give very strong buffs. The first of which is a points boost, a 4-minute points boost of 15%, or 25% if you can take both altars. And TCG9 was very strong at these buildings last week. I think, Cortex, that account strength is super useful at these fights, because these really are small-scale mano-a-mano type battles. And we do see Blue Team trying to take both of these monsters, and listen, it looks to me like War is actually going to give up
they're giving
both of the altars.
They're giving. And like you said, this is gonna be their window to come back into this game, I think. Especially maybe they have a no mark of their own. Maybe they can make an offensive building play of their own. and maybe start making some of these points back. If they can combine a Nomark with these Anubis buffs, they can really generate a lot of points in a very, very short amount of time. But also the advantage that War has gained himself now is they probably don't want to fight TCG9 in the middle head-on many times this game. Because like we said, stronger accounts, they will likely be able to win the mid-fights if it's even numbers with even skills. So they're holding the arc now. They probably want as few arcs as possible in this game. And by winning the first arc, not only have they secured the points from the first arc, but they've also secured the control of the tempo of the arcs. They now control when the next arc will spawn, and they also can delay it to the point where there won't be as many arcs as maybe TCG9 would have liked in this game.
Yeah, this is a great chess match that we have here, and hopefully we can articulate what's happening here to the audience without making this overly complicated. What Cortex is saying and what's happening here is that there's just a lot of hidden scoring and hidden advantages that you just don't see on the scoreboard. Blue team, they do have gathering points that we are not seeing, and they have more skill points that we are not seeing. But what War has is they have the arc, they control the tempo, they have the lead, and they know that they likely have more mid-fighting skills. They have Dust Up, which the enemy doesn't have. They probably have Desert Storm and To the Death. So it's not a huge advantage, but it's a couple points more. So potentially they can just try to win that second mid-fight with more skills. Whereas the blue team, they just need to do a bunch of things well in between now and the next mid-fight. And they have to win that next mid. Because I think you're right, Cortex. I think this is like almost certainly going to be a max hold by War, and they're going to try to make this a 2-arc game. So TCG9, they have to use their no-mark well in between, and they have to win the building game, I think. Which they haven't done so far, but last week they were very strong in the building game.
Yeah, especially on this bottom side of the map here. War is constantly applying pressure to this Sky Altar on the side of TCG9, which usually the bottom side of the map, where you're defending your Shrine of Life, is your weaker side because the altars are further away from your base than it is for the enemy. So it's very, very impressive here from the side of War that they're able to keep constant control and pressure on the side of the map of TCG9 on this side of the map. I'm very, very impressed. And now Nomark is being cast by TCG9. So they've showed a bit of their hand now. They also have Nomark on the bar, which shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. But they have now used it, and it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do with this, because they're down now 3,000 points. So they really need to start making some of these points back here, Brian.
Yeah, they definitely do, and we just see so much good work by Red at this Sky Altar. They've got the Hera CY in this building. The leadership garrisons in Ark of Osiris have persisted much longer than I ever expected, but it feels to me maybe like the CY is the upgrade to this leadership garrison that the game needed. It's replacing the long-standing YSS garrison. We see that there's actually some Hera garrisons in many of these war buildings, which allows them to bring in any sort of troop. Any troop type can fill these buildings, keep the buildings filled. And it's interesting, Cortex, because what we are seeing in a lot of these fights is Blue is winning some of these field fights, but these garrisons are completely full and getting filled as the swarm is happening. So War, they kind of know this building's going down, but they're going to try and max punish and max disrupt by filling rather than fighting in the field.
Yeah, they're doing a great job here at stalling TCG9's building progress as much as possible. They did end up getting their Sky Altar back, and they also have now captured the Sky Altar of War on the other side of the map, which War is now trying to get back. But they also have a Hera in there, which is looking very strong, and the Swarm and the rally of the side of War is looking quite weak at this point, so they really might be able to make some points back here. But we do have to remember, War still has control of that first arc, and that's points to be cashed, and it's also game tempo that they get to control.
Absolutely. At this point, it's a 2,000 point lead, but we are not counting the arc right now. Now, the thing is, Cortex, we got to think about the gathering points because we're actually almost halfway through this match now. And we do see 4 or 5 gatherers from TCG9. If we give them 5,000 gathering points for the whole match, then they've already generated about 2,500 points, which neutralizes almost the entire arc.
Yeah,
so
interestingly,
it's not out of reach here. I would say that War has about a 3,000 point lead at the moment, but TCG9 has no mark active. They're actually generating 500 more points per minute at this time, so it's still a very close match, and we're within a 1 arc difference in this match. Do you rate one team as the favorite at this point?
I think from the opening, I would say War have showed me more, but it's still anyone's game in my mind. It is a very, very close game, and I think it can still go either way. But War are definitely doing better than I expected them to do when coming into the game. I thought it would be a lot more even off the bat, but they really pushed at the start, especially on the bottom side of the map, and really got themselves a good lead. And I think it was a bit of a mistake from TCG9 and a bit greedy to send so few marches to the mid-fight that ended up losing them the first mid-fight that they have no business losing, because War was pushing everywhere on the structures and they were winning on the structures. You can't have them win on structures against you and also win in the mid on the first arc, because like we said, it gives them tempo control, it gives them control of when the arcs will spawn, and it also gives them the extra points. So I think that was a big blunder at the opening by the side of TCG9. But they're by no means out of this game, and it's still a very, very close game. Like you said, no mark's still ticking. They're generating a lot of points now. But small lead to War due to the first arc, and I think also for them very, very nice to get to stall out the second arc and control the pace of the game a bit.
Yeah, I think the operative word here is mistakes. There's just a few too many mistakes by TCG9, even at this moment where they have taken all their own buildings back. We have a stable situation with the main buildings, but at the same time, they've lost 2 of their outposts. Like, their outposts keep getting flipped by War. And, you know, it's not that and sometimes these outposts are empty. I'm kind of looking at them now, and what War has been doing is flipping some empty outposts. And I mean, I think that's kind of unforgivable, Cortex. I don't know. I mean, do top teams leave outposts empty sometimes? Because even in my arc with 20 people, we are putting a garrison in every outpost to avoid this exact situation. Yeah,
generally from my experience at high level OL and Grand Prix, you do not leave your outposts empty. You don't want to give them for free. And you leave a garrison there, especially to just stop them from being able to tap it with a fast cavalry march, right? So yeah, definitely big blunders. I haven't seen it myself, but as you say, they're leaving the outpost empty. I think that's a big mistake on their part. Now, they also, to note, did grab both Anubises on the side of TCG9, so that's also helping them generate some more points alongside the no mark. So I feel like they've done decent to get back into this game as best they can, but like you said, their outposts keep flipping, especially during their no mark and during their Anubis buffs. Having your outpost flip is not good, because having your outpost is generating a ton of points, especially with all the added points that you're getting from the Anubis buffs and from no mark. So having your outpost flip during that time is not great, and they're still holding on to the arc. No mark is now over, and the side of War is still up by 1.3k points. And now they deliver the arc, they're up by over 4,000 points here.
Interesting, yeah. Arc getting returned as we see this huge fight happening here at the Desert Altar. War trying to pressure down this David Hector garrison with their Achilles Subutai rally plus a heavy swarm. War clearing the blue field again and flipping this building again. They are literally outfighting TCG9 all over this map. We probably undersold the account strength of 3672. This is a heavy whale kingdom. And these two teams are both in the huge Imperium Heroic Anthem that's happening right now. So these teams are enemies in Arc, they're enemies in KVK, and they are much closer in fighting ability than I expected when I put so many of my Oryx on TCG9 before this match. I'm sweating bullets over here.
Yeah, no, by no means are the War accounts weak. That's not what we were saying earlier. But it's just, you know, TCG9, they have all these massive names. They probably have, by just account strength, the strongest ARC team in the game. And I don't think that's really a controversial take. But the War accounts are still very strong and must be respected. And they're able, like you said, to outfight TCG9 here, and this is very, very impressive stuff from the side of War. Now, I also want to note, both teams have now casted stocking up, literally at the same time. I think there was a few seconds, yeah, literally 3 seconds between the casts of both teams stocking up. So just around the 30-minute mark is when both of these teams decided to use their stocking up. So now both of them will probably be quite healthy on points. But again, like we spoke about earlier, I feel like TCG9 did not really take that good advantage of the point advantage that they had at the start of the game. They should have used more in the mid fight. They should have done better with their no mark. I feel like really War kind of outplayed them with the points, and especially the opening of the game and the first arc and everything that led up to that.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see what happens here. You know, Osiris League at the top level is so close, and a lot of times, yeah, and the details matter, and a lot of times the better usage of skill, it doesn't seem like a big deal at the moment, but it's only when you look back on the match at the end that you realize, oh, you know, they got a little bit more value here, a little bit more value there, and when you summed up all the points, it was that slightly better skill usage that, you know, gave one team the edge. So I think you're right that, you know, War has gotten better value from their skills, but at the same time, Cortex, you know, stocking up being used by both teams. We've got mid and Altars of Anubis spawning at roughly the same time, but not exactly the same time. The Altars are going to spawn 1 minute before the mid. So, you know, one team probably has Master Strategy. The other team might have Sun Sailor. The skill usage, the value you get from your skill usage, I think we are going to measure that in the next 5 or 6 minutes. It's all really going to happen here, and whoever plays better in these next 5 minutes, they are very likely to have the lead in the match.
I fully agree. This upcoming, like you said, Anubis fights and the mid fight will be quite important, to say the least, for the state of the game here. And I really think TCG9 has to push the pace and really make some important plays and get some wins here on the map during these next 5 minutes.
Yeah, and as we watch this fight here at the War Desert Altar, you know, I would describe this attack by Blue as a bit of a throwaway. You know, the rally's there, there's maybe 6 or 7 marches, but, you know, unless they cast or curse me here, I don't think this is going to be a successful attack. And so it's sort of just like rearranging the food on your plate. I mean, maybe all of a sudden this is looking like a more promising attack here, but
maybe you did cast.
I mean, it wasn't like a big attack. At the end of the day, this was not like that many marches pushing here. And let's see if War can hold on.
They did end up taking the altar down here, yeah. Which is very good for the side of TCG9. Like you said, it wasn't a very heavy push, and getting an altar for cheap, so to speak, is always you're always happy with that. They will probably lose it here right away because they don't have many healthy marches left, but they did get a garrison captain in, and they have a couple of marches. If they could hold on to this for a little bit, that would be very, very good for the side of TCG9. But it looks like it will end up going down here to the swarm. Yeah. So, but still.
And if you look at the Sky Altar on the same side, it does get flipped towards War. So they basically swapped altars here. Again, yeah. And it's a pretty fair trade in all.
It's relentless, this pressure from the side of War on this Sky Altar on the bottom side of the map. They've been really hammering it all game, and it's usually a building that's quite safe for the defending side. And being able to... It's usually the Desert Altar you see flipped more often because it's easier for the attacker to reach it. But seeing the Sky Altar flipped so often from the side of War is really, really impressive stuff in my opinion.
Yeah, and we have to start thinking about the timing here. The timing is so big. I think right now, if your march is dying, that's pretty good. Because the next 2 minutes, your march can do so many different things. It can go to the Altar of Anubis first and try to take that, and then go for mid. You know, we've talked about greed in this match and how TCG9 has been a little bit greedy. this is the ultimate greed paradox here, where if you can take the altars and then get the arc, you get a really nice bonus. But to try to do both is very risky. We already see that War is heavily mobilizing mid. The one thing about these altars, though, Cortex, is they're actually a little bit less valuable, because if you take the altars now and then grab the arc, you have to return the arc within 4 minutes to get the points bonus. It's not really worth it, you know? Like, it neutralizes the value of these altars a little bit. And I think that's why we're seeing both teams actually go very heavy to mid, and both teams are completely ignoring the altars of Anubis on the outside of the map. Very interesting. Both teams going all in for the second mid.
Yeah, and also interestingly, they did arrive a lot earlier than TCG9 with a lot more marches on the side of War, which, again, like we spoke about earlier, having that first arc under your control allows you to control the pace of the game. And they probably timed their arc capture with a structure push or something similar, so they knew they had the rotation advantage. They refreshed their marches quicker, they're gonna be home quicker and be able to position better at this arc here. But yeah, like you said, this will be everything for, especially I think for the side of TCG9. This is very, very important to them, because if they do lose this arc here, War is gonna have a massive lead, and I think this is really where TCG wants to fight them, is in the middle. With, like we said, even though yes, the War accounts are very strong, they still do have an advantage when it comes to the account strength. So I think this is vital and crucial to the game state for the side of TCG9, this mid-fight here.
I'm looking at the engage here, Cortex. I'm looking to see which team likes the engage that they get. TCG9 has been very disciplined about everyone gathering up at the front of their ball and waiting until the very last second to attack, because they want everybody to attack in together. We see that War is on that same game plan here, and it is, in fact, TCG9 pushing in. They're not fully gathered as they push, so this is going to be very spicy here.
To the death from the side of TCG9. On both sides, to the death. Desert Storm from the side of Yet Ming. And from the side of TCG9. Oh, this is... Oh, but the arc pull. War got the early grab. They're running away with it.
I gotta tell you, there are more blue marches not at this fight than there are red. Red has almost everybody here. Blue has probably 15 to 20 marches that are not here. So a numbers advantage for red mid, and a monster pull, an absolutely monster pull by that Belisarius. One of the most impactful pulls we've ever seen in Arc of Osiris. He's halfway down the freaking field with that one.
Yeah, and they get the second pull going here as well. And as you mentioned earlier, and very good analysis on that, TCG9 has not had Dust Up on their bar, and they don't have it now either. They always go into these mid fights with a skill disadvantage. On the side of War, they popped to the death. They popped Desert Storm. They popped Dust Up. And what did TCG9 have to respond with was only Dust Up, no, Desert Storm and to the death. They're fighting a skill down in every mid-fight. And they're also now completely wiped out of this mid-fight. And again, War... Oh, Master Strategy. Master Strategy cast from the side of TCG9. Okay, now this... Where is it going from? I can't see where the skill is going from.
Gathered up.
Oh, I see it. I see it.
It looks like
it's topside. Yep. Yeah. It is. Okay,
so
well...
they got 20 people in last week. It looks like they're going to get the max 20 again in here. I don't think it's enough, Cortex.
Ooh.
I don't think this is enough. Oh, wait, where's it going?
It's going to the arc. Straight to the arc.
Straight to the arc. Straight to the arc.
This is really a Hail Mary by the side of TCG9. Yeah. I think they realize this arc is the game for them. Giving this control of this arc to the side of War is really catastrophic for the side of TCG9. They simply can't afford to lose this arc and give them even more control over the pace of the game. But like you said, I don't think it's going to be enough. They're getting wiped out immediately. War did a really good job of protecting the arc carrier, and they were ready for this master strategy play. And... Brian, all of the blue marches are wiped out. It's done. War has the arc.
Yeah, we've got it. I mean, we've got an ambush coming. We've got a big ambush coming from blue. The issue was that pull. The pull brought the arc so far down the field that instead of being able to ambush them in the middle, they ambushed them very close to War's obelisk. And so the War marches that died, they came back to this fight. It was like one team warped their marches to this spot. The other team just walked their marches back to the same freaking spot. And so all that the master strategy did was negate the natural distance advantage that War had. That's a very expensive skill to cast, when what you could have done instead is use, like, you know, Dust Up plus well, just Dust Up mid and just not lose it so badly.
Yeah, it's
but yeah,
really...
I mean, at this point, TCG9 in really bad shape.
They are indeed. It's really puzzling to me why they are in refusal of using the Dust Up skill. It is very difficult, and maybe they've been getting by against maybe some weaker teams by not having Dust Up just with their account strength, like we've spoken about so many times this game. But War also has very, very strong accounts. You can't just get by just brute forcing it. You have to match skills in mid. You can't just go in every mid fight one skill down and just expect to win. That's just not gonna work against strong teams. And like you said, they use 6 points to cast this master strategy. They are now also pulled their ace out of their hat. This was their play. And they've done it before, and clearly War predicted it and expected this to happen, and they prepared accordingly and protected the arc properly, and now this game is really in the hands of War, and it's going to be quite tough for TCG9 to get back into.
At the end of the day, TCG9 ran back the same skill bar that they had last week, whereas War has a completely different skill bar than they have had in any other matches. Before the game, we pointed out how Viet Minh had run some very crazy skills in all their matches before this. And then in this match here, they went with the most standard of standard skill bars that you are ever going to see. This is what pretty much, this is what I run. I mean, this is what my arc, well, other than stocking up, this is what my arc team runs, right? It's just like, it's mid-focus skills. It's Desert Storm to the death and Dust Up, plus, you know, all the just like top tier skills of Time Warp, No Mark, and stocking up. So they went with a very bog standard skill bar, and it was like a natural counter to TCG9's bar, because they knew they had more mid skills. You know, that master strategy versus Dust Up, it just gives you an advantage mid if you go with the Dust Up skill bar.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a very standard skill bar here for the side of War, which they maybe figured the weakness in TCG9's strategy is that their mid fights are not that strong because they're missing a skill. And like I said earlier, they've been maybe getting by just brute forcing with account strength. But I think War saw that and was like, well, if we just have Dust Up on top of every other skill, we'll just beat them in mid. And now both teams have one skill that's still unrevealed, but we can just about assume that's probably a Time Warp. So I don't know if they have any tricks left up their sleeve on the side of TCG9 here to try to take control back of this game. Brian, what would you say are the route or the strategies that TCG9 have to try to implement here in order to try to get control back of this game?
Well, I don't think it's over. I don't think it's over. Now, I missed who took these Altars of Anubis. I'm not certain. We do know that TCG9 is generating 300 more points per minute right now. So I think we can... Actually, we can see it now on the, on the bar,
one each. Actually. They had one each. They had
one each. Yeah, interesting. Okay. So the Altars were a draw. We're going to have a third altar later in this match, and Cortex, they still do have master strategy. They have Time Warp and master strategy, so they can do a quick arc return, right? Because and look at this, the arc gets returned.
Yes.
The arc was returned by War, which is very, I mean, that's pretty wild. And I think
that is surprising to me.
Yeah,
I feel
to
like
me,
that
helps TCG9.
I agree. I feel like they had such good control of the game, of the game's tempo, of the game's pace, that they would be happy just holding on to the arc with the point lead and have max... Well, maybe they could even stall it to no arcs left, right? If they held it until... I'm not sure, but maybe the reason why they did deliver it early is because of the extra point usage from the side of TCG9. The side of War knows they have a skill advantage right now in terms of points, because TCG9 used the master strategy, and, well, the only skill different that War used was Dust Up. So they should theoretically have a 4-point advantage going into this next arc. So that's maybe what they're banking on, that they can just win the mid fight again with the superior skill bar. I'm not sure.
Could be. I mean, at the end of the day, War does not need to go to this last mid. They can very likely win this match even if they lose the third arc. They have an 8,000 point lead at the moment. The third arc is going to be worth 4,000 points. So if War can just, you know, fake to the mid, force TCG9 to go max numbers mid, they can then just skip the mid and use that second no mark. I mean, both teams, even though they have so many skill points, both teams holding their second no mark right now. And they're very unlikely to use it before this next arc because that's going to deplete their skill bar. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that because stocking up brings it back, but both teams holding their second no mark right now, that can be impactful going down the stretch. But if I'm TCG9, I'm thinking to myself, War is not going to take this third mid seriously. I'm not the greatest arc leader, but that's my mentality. Is that if I'm TCG9, I feel like I'm going to have to win mid for cheap and then actually do a lot on the sides as I'm winning mid for cheap. Just because I'm down so many points.
Yeah, they might maybe try to master strategy arc as well. They do have it on their bar, but I'm not sure what else they can do here. And if War somehow put up a great fight and win the mid fight again, I mean, this is just over, right? So that's maybe also a view from the side of War that, like, hey, if we just win next arc, and we've shown we can do it when both of us showed up in full strength, if we just win the arc again, we win the game. So that might be also what they're just going for. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, they're definitely at the brink of elimination here on the side of TCG9. They really have to pull something out of their hat to turn the tides of this game and get control back, because this has been War domination from start till now. So unless TCG9 pulls something crazy out their hats, I feel like this is going towards the side of War this game.
What's interesting to me is that the occupation score is actually even in this match. As much as it felt like War has flipped more buildings of TCG9, the occupation score is even. And so I think the reason it's felt like War is winning the side game is because they've just disrupted TCG9 so much. TCG9 was so smooth last week and played so well last week that War has really disrupted them and forced them to play worse. Now, if you're TCG9 and like you think about your enemy as an NPC here, I think what you can do mid is you can send a token force mid, have most of your players take the structure game, like on one side take the structure game, and then warp those marches mid at the, like, before the arc spawns, right? Or maybe after the arc has been pulled. Like, I think that's at least a possible game plan you have if you're TCG9. Now, the problem with that, of course, is that War can anticipate that and do what you said, which is just full send to mid. So we're gonna have to see what happens. Cortex, I think you're right that I guess the more sensible or conservative strategy for War is to like full send mid and try to win it.
War are going mid. I see them now.
Okay. Yeah.
And a very early rotation to mid from both sides here. I think they're going for it. And also, as you mentioned earlier, I keep noticing when looking at the minimap here, the outposts of TCG9 are constantly flipping. All of them right now. One of them even in control from the side of War. And that's maybe why it's also felt like such domination looking at the scoreboard, because even though overall TCG9 have been the stronger structure team this game, but the fact of the outpost flipping has made it even. So with that, coupled with the 2 arc wins from the side of War, it's really flipped the game into their favor. And on the side of War, the outposts have stayed healthy the whole time, so TCG9 have not done nearly as good of a job as War at disrupting those outposts. Now this mid fight here is the game, so... But I think, like you said earlier, even if War lose this mid fight, they're kind of fine. So yes, they can full send it and guarantee the game win by winning the arc, but even if they do lose, it's not the end of the world for them. So yeah, TCG9 are really on their last legs here. They have to really pull something out the hat here to bring this game back.
Yeah, I think they have to do something like win the mid fight very convincingly and then warp some of their marches to take enemy buildings after it, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you're War, the nice thing for War is that if you get wrecked in this mid fight, which can happen, it can absolutely happen, you are getting out ratioed in this match. So if War gets wiped hard here, then their marches can refresh and go to their own buildings very quickly, and then they're not going to get punished in the final 5 minutes of this match when both teams have no mark. So it's a pretty good situation for War as Desert Storm gets cast on blue team here. Yeah, softening them up and an early dust up. So we're gonna have a bit of a repeat of the last mid fight. And let's see if blue is sending. Yeah, interestingly, Cortex, blue actually has more marches in the middle. Red is actually working the sides right now. On the top side of this map, red is working the sides. They've got about 15 marches on the top side right now. So this is a bit of a cheat here, or a bit of a fake mid effort by War, I think, where they're going to play the side game as this mid fight goes on.
Time warp by both sides. I don't think this can mean anything else than a to the death, unless, like you said, maybe they're faking mid, and if they pull a no mark out of their hat here on the side of War, that could really be backbreaking for the side of TCG9. Let's see what happens here. 20 seconds until Arc spawns. Neither team has cast to the death yet. They're both moving up, ready to engage. Engage is now coming in. To the death by the side of TCG9. Nothing yet from the side of War. Are they using no mark? No, okay. To the death cast a bit late, maybe, by the side of War, but it did get cast. So no more no marks. Well, they can maybe get another one with gathering points, but the Arc is now spawned. And as you mentioned, last Arc, that pull from the side of War was catastrophic for TCG9. It made it almost impossible for them to win the Arc back, even with the teleport skill. Now first capture by TCG9, but drops immediately, so the Arc is still in the center of the map here. A second Desert Storm, cast by both teams. Oh, this is gonna be an interesting mid-fight.
Both teams dumping their skill bars. It was a good engage by TCG9. They got the early sad phases, but War is able to compete
winning the fights
so well.
It's over.
Yeah. War taking another Arc from TCG9. A little bit more skills, but it's really the fighting Cortex. They have fought so well in this mid.
They have.
Going 3 for 3 against some of the strongest accounts in the game. Very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, very impressive. Some of the strongest accounts in the game, some of the best field fighters in the game, they're just showing up to mid and saying, no, we can take you on, we can beat you head on in an open field fight in the middle. Yes, sure, they have the extra advantage of the dust up skill. Another master strategy by TCG9. Well, this is everything. This is the Hail Mary play. Cast on the Arc yet again. But I don't think War will give this up.
It's a better warp. Look at how much better this warp is, though.
It's a lot
so
better.
Much closer to the mid, so your other marches can get here. But, you know, TCG9, they're back. I mean, they just sent everybody back to mid. They read this play very well.
They read it perfectly. They realized they can warp here again, guys. We need to keep sending back to mid. This mid is not one. Now, TCG9 have arrived, and it is possible that they can take this Arc and bring it back into their control, but the War marches are coming in fresh. Oh, this is a very close game.
Yeah, it's fresh marches for TCG9. Some of these red marches are very weakened, and it's a tight ball. I mean, I love how tight the ball is that you naturally get from the master strategy. And look at this, they kind of wiped the bottom side of the ball first, and then raged dump onto this top side of the ball. So...
And now they have the pull from TCG9 here, and they have this murder ball to keep these fresh war marches from getting anywhere near this Arc carrier. They might be able to get this with the second master strategy here. The first one was a bit desperate, I feel, but this one looked a lot better and is definitely getting them some better results so far. If they are able to bring the Arc back, they still have a chance at this game. But, oh, they have 6 minutes left of the game. They need to get the Arc back, and they need to get control of structures. If I'm War here, I might just let them have it, like you mentioned earlier, and just go for the structures. They might even have more points available for maybe a second no mark. The side of TCG9 will definitely not have that, but maybe War soon have enough points for another no mark. That could definitely also flip the game.
Yeah,
into
these
their
second
favor.
no marks are a big deal here, and you know the thing is, if with this third Altars of Anubis, which the Altars of Anubis are spawning right now, with the third buff, you get 2 skill points, and so if you're TCG9, you have to win these altars because you get a skill point boost that might give you enough points to cast No Mark. You also get the scoring boost that would make this third arc worth about 1,000 extra points. It's going to be worth a five.
It's a lot.
5K arc if TCG9 can win both altars. I can tell you right now that they've already won one. They won the top, or they're fighting the top altar now that they will take it. And at the bottom altar, it is only TCG9 who is there. Red, it's actually Red who is full sending back to mid. Red has not in any way, shape, or form given up on this arc. There's only 4.5 minutes left in the match, and if anything, it is Red who is flooding the zone with more marches here. Blue needs to return this arc to have any chance to win this match, and this escort is going to have to fight their butts off to get this friggin' arc home in time.
Yeah, it's tough for Blue, because as you said, they need to get this arc back, but at the same time, they need to gain an advantage on the structure points. So they need to commit some amount of players to get structures, whilst also fending off these war marches sprinting towards this arc. So it's a very tough situation for TCG9. But if they are able to deliver it and get control of the structures, there is still a chance for them to get back into this game. However, I am curious about the skill bar of War, because if they are near points for a second no mark, that could really be the last nail in the coffin for TCG9.
We also have to say that you can see the blue outlines around TCG9's marches. They have a 20% march speed buff from the Altars of Anubis. And finally, what we have to say is that War has not cast a second stocking up, or a second no mark. They do not have enough points for no mark. There's the Desert Storm. They've given up the Ghost. War has given up the Ghost on casting a second no mark in this match. And that is that's just a points boost they're not going to get. At the same time, TCG9, they are holding their skills. Maybe they get a few minutes of no mark here at the end. I don't know.
That Desert Storm was TCG9. So they still have points on the side of War.
You're right. Good call. Yep.
Which they haven't used their they have Desert Storm off cooldown now, and presumably they have the points for it, but they have chose not to cast it. But as you mentioned, the Altars of Anubis both went over to TCG9. They have a march speed boost, they have a points gaining boost.
This is a 5K arc. This is a 5K arc right here, if they can return it in time. One of the reasons that War is fighting so hard for this is they are trying to delay the return of this arc until some of these altar boosts wear off, but they have to stop it for another 2.5 minutes.
There's the no mark from TCG9. TCG9 cast no mark. Viet Minh also cast no mark. How do they have the points?
How did they both get points at the same moment?
Well, how did they have the points for Desert Storm and no mark? They must be gathering a lot over on the side of TCG9. And we can see also, if we look at the total provision score for the game. Total provision score for the game.
Started to come in.
5k for the side of TCG9 and 3.2k for the side of War. TCG9 are getting a lot more points. Arc got cashed. 700 point lead still for the side of War, with now no mark ticking for both sides. But important to keep in mind, both Altar of Anubis went over to the side of TCG9. They're gaining 914 points per minute to the side of 572 for the side of War. This is still anyone's game. This is such a close game now after that arc capture. Oh boy.
You know, I think if anything, it is War that has more gatherers still out. TCG9 was fully incentivized to bring in all of their gatherers while they had the double altar points boost. So we have to assume that all the big gatherers from Blue Team are in. Red Team, I still see they actually have about 8 gatherers out right now. So War is doing some last minute gathering, and they might have some gatherers who have been out for a bit. So if anything, I think the gathering points are going to be in War's favor here down the stretch. And with 50 seconds left, Cortex, it's really just the gatherers, right? I mean, the building flips at this point, they're just not even that important.
Yeah, it's all down to the gatherers now. Still a 700 point lead almost for the side of War. And if we look at total gatherers cashed in, TCG9 have cashed in 5,000, whereas War only has cashed in 3.3k. So if they're gathering at the same rate, presumably War still has some gatherers left to return, but...
Yeah, they're coming in now. They're walking in now. They just need to get here in time. One guy's cutting it real close. One guy's cutting it real close. Yeah. I see a Siundiok that was 21 seconds left in the match and 21 seconds before they get home. Now they're going to try and tile hop. Oh my gosh, this is close.
2, 1, it's over. War with the victory. Whew, what a crazy game, Brian. That really came down to the wire. I really didn't expect the amount of points. Like you said, exactly 5,000 points for that last Ark of Osiris on the side of TCG9 really made the game a nail-biter. But just the last few points extra that they had from the first 2 arcs on the side of War got them the win in the end. And I think really, overall, what brought them the victory in this game was their opening. Their opening was so strong, they got the first arc, which maybe, I think TCG9 might be kicking themselves a bit for what happened at that first arc, which they really could have gotten if they wanted to, and they weren't as greedy and committed a few more marches. But GG's to both teams. War ended up taking the victory. What are your thoughts, Brian?
You know, the opening was big. I think the most important thing was that War won 3 out of 3 mid fights. I mean, it was a fair fight. Like, that mid fight was fair, as my camera there.
Yeah, I noticed.
But you know, it was both. I mean, at the end of the day, Cortex, there were so many little things in this match that swung things War's way, and they kept it so simple, really. I mean, at the end of the match, they didn't even contest the altars, and that meant that TCG9 got like a huge points boost. They got a points boost for their gatherers, and they got a points boost for that last arc, and for the structures they held. But I think you're right that TCG9 just made a few... They let it get away. I think they let this one get away. You look at the total kills. They won the total kills by a significant amount. They could have won that first mid. You do those 2 things and you win the match. But it was an incredible match, honestly, and very well played by both teams. And congratulations to War making it to the finals of Osiris League yet again via Ming.
Yeah, massive congratulations to War, and well played to both teams, as Brian said. A very, very close game. And like we mentioned, I think TCG9 might be kicking themselves a bit. There's definitely things they could have done differently that would have gotten them the victory in this game. But either way, they played tremendously. Both of these teams did. And wish War best of luck in the final. Any last words, Brian?
No, that's it.
All right.
We're all going to go back to our level 7 passes here and keep on fighting.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the stream, throw a like on it. It was a really, really crazy Ark of Osiris game. Make sure you subscribe to the official Rise of Kingdoms channel, as well as to Brian and mine YouTube channel. We're both content creators of our own, and we both make content, so make sure to show us some love. And thank you guys so much for watching this crazy, crazy semi-final game between TCG9 and War. And we'll see you guys very, very soon with the finals coming up in not very long, which is going to be very, very exciting. So make sure you tune in for that. And yeah, all of these kingdoms are going back to fighting now in their KVKs. So yeah, thank you guys for being here, and we'll see you guys next time.